Seattle House Mafia.
Welcome to the latest episode of Seattle House Mafia's Industry Interviews. I am Phil, your host, and today's guest has roots that go back to the 90s LA rave scene. Moving north to San Francisco, she was the host of KUSF's Future Breaks FM radio show as DJ Miss E, and the co-founder of Club Night Eclectic in San Francisco. Her passion for positive, music-driven media fueled her collaboration in all aspects of the business, from Accelerator Magazine to Xbox Entertainment, vinyl and digital record labels, film and TV sync licensing, and countless performances stateside and beyond. If you've been going out in Seattle for any length of time, you've likely caught one of her uplifting sets as GriffinGrrl. Please welcome Emily Griffin. How are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
What do you think? What have you been up to?
Working, raising a daughter, loving life in Seattle. Making music, all the things.
Perfect. Well, I always like to start off with when it sort of clicks with me with somebody, and we've never met before, right? Which is actually my favorite way to do these, I've realized. I like the people that I already know, but it's always just full of surprises when I've never met somebody. And so when I really I've seen a few different DJ sets of yours throughout the years for sure. And I took a couple of my jiu-jitsu buddies to the LTJ Bookham show at Monkey Loft, and we were walking up, these guys, like my homies, like ride or dies, like my buddy Wayne and Carl, and we're walking up and we get out onto that little walkway onto the deck, and we're having this conversation, of course, about jiu-jitsu or something, and I shush them and they're like, "What's up, bro?" And I just start walking away from him, and I look back and I go, I need to know who the fuck's DJing right now. And so I walked up, and it was you, because I didn't know if there were set times or anything. And there was just something about the music that you were playing specifically, and Rob killed it. Obviously, LTJ did his thing, Rob Noble, that is. But like the drum and bass that you were playing, for me personally, and music's very subjective, right? It was just like one of the favorite sets to memory. So I didn't talk your whole set with my friends that I brought. Like I just ignored them and just listened to what you were playing. So I don't mean to fluff you up too much, but really and then I reached out. I think I reached out the next day.
Soon after, yeah. And then you did your set here.
Yeah.
Which I loved listening to. That was a really special night.
Yeah.
I was moved to tears like a couple times that night, because it was like full circle getting to open up for LTJ again, and having people come together to listen to drum and bass and feeling the revived interest in drum and bass, and especially that melodic style. It was really special. So I'm glad that was a good point of connection.
No, it kicked me in the ass. And it really did inspire me to go dig, and really the way I play vinyl sets, a lot of times I'll just grab stuff and then go for it. And it inspired me to grab some of my old drum and bass records, and I've never been a drum and bass DJ. Like that's never been my thing. And just go for it, Plus I had a new mixer that I wanted to break into.
Yeah, it was well done. Yeah. So put that in the show notes. Your mix was really great.
Well, good. I appreciate it, And that night, so you've played with LTJ before. How many times?
That was my second. So
okay.
It was, the first time was one of my first gigs in Seattle as a touring artist. I was coming up here and playing shows, and it was Ramiro from Uniting Souls had just recently moved up to Seattle and was hosting shows up here. And so I got to open up for LTJ Bookham at the Showbox in 2001.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was like a night where I met some really important people that eventually, like Kid Hops, who eventually had me move up here. And it was just the start of something special with Seattle back then. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. And I was actually going to ask because, and then I want to go into your history a little bit, but I've seen you play, and actually I was just watching a set of yours on YouTube, which was kind of this ethereal, I don't know what you'd call it. It was house, right? It was 4/4, but it had a different vibe to it than like the house that I normally play and normally listen to. And so it seems like, and then I heard your drum and bass set, and it seems like there's almost a thread that regardless of the genre that you're playing, there's maybe a thread, but I might be reading into it too much, but you do play a bunch of different genres, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I started as a drum and bass DJ. It was drum and bass that inspired me to learn how to DJ, because I was raving, I was listening to a lot of house music for sure, and back then there was like less splintering of genres. So it was just, or I was less aware of it too. But drum and bass and jungle in 1996, 1997 absolutely changed the game for me. And the guys that were playing jungle and drum and bass in San Francisco at that time it was so fascinating to me. I was like, I want to do that. Because at that time I was like, drum and bass is going to save the world. Everybody in the world needs to listen to drum and bass. And that's what had me push through the technical challenge of learning how to mix. And, with vinyl at 180 beats per minute. I mean, it took me a while, but some
are 45s and some are 33s. And
And so that was then I got sick of drum and bass after listening to nothing but that for a couple of years. And so I did more breaks, UK garage, two-step, electro. Like I kind of, my dad was making fun of me because he said, I could tell you're getting older because every year you come home for Christmas and your BPMs are coming down. So yes, my BPMs have come down, but I do love playing drum and bass still, but I love house, and, GriffinGrrl was very much about a new sound, and house music was what felt great to me at that point. And then even with house, like I love playing the deep melodic, musical style. And I would say no matter what I'm playing, you're going to get various styles in it. And I just want it to sound as musical as possible. Like I really pay attention to the storytelling aspect of anything I'm playing. Yeah.
The particular mix I was looking at was like from 2 years ago. It had some kind of fun background, and it was definitely deep melodic. It had this almost like esoteric feel about it, and almost a little bit of that desert vibe too. There was something about it. I dug it. That's what I was looking at when I was kind of making show notes. I was listening to that today actually. And
that was lockdown time. That was kind of like coming out of lockdown times, and I think those were good times to explore different sides of ourselves. And there's so much of like a spiritual conversation happening as we curate music as DJs, and so I think lockdown was a good time for me to explore that and to try different things that might not work. Well, that won't work at 1 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday night, but is very much like part of my repertoire. So
there's something. It's funny. I mean, you probably know this too in your life, but it seems like there's a few different camps when it came to lockdown. There's people that just completely fell apart, and then there's people that just like put it in fifth gear and exploded into whatever creative realm that they were maybe dabbling with or thinking about, and just like, I have no excuse but time right now, so I might as well get into it. That's pretty interesting.
Well, I crumbled down. I mean, I had both, I guess.
We all had our
like
moments.
Come on, like how could you not have come through that a different person? Yeah.
I know. I just don't want it to happen again. That's a whole nother that's a whole nother show. We'll see. And so it's funny you said your dad. So your dad, how does he even understand like what BPMs are? Did you just?
I got my. Come from a musical family, and he's a self-taught musician and has a pretty hefty guitar collection. I grew up with playing on his 808 machine, and he's a musician. Like I came home with mixtapes of jungle, and he was like, "Girl, this sounds like Rush Hour in Times Square. Like, what is this?" But he saw my passion, and I think when my parents saw my club Eclectic succeed and that become a thing, and they started to see how my passion for dance music and raving and all that started to intersect with my interest in media production and for my career, like they were like, "Okay, we get this. Like, it's not just about you partying and having a great time. It's
staying
actually
out to all hours."
They didn't understand that part of it, but now they see how I've turned that into a really successful career, so they're happy.
Yeah, I want to get it. So before we talk about that, so did you grow up in LA, or where did you grow up?
I was born in Queens, New York, and my dad was an executive for British Airways, so I'm an airline brat. So I lived all over the world, all over the country. My sister was born in Detroit, my brother was born in New Orleans, bounced back and forth, East Coast, West Coast, all of that. But San Francisco was the first time I got to move for me. Like, I wanted to do radio production. KUSF was the top rated college radio station at the time. And that's all I could think. I was like, okay, I love radio. Like, I grew up with radio because radio was always my best friend anywhere I moved. It was the constant. So I was making mixtapes off of the radio and doing fake radio shows. Like, I've always been DJing, Phil. Like, it's part of my essence. I don't remember not DJing because I was always doing radio shows, even if it was fake radio shows in my, my garage, growing up. But it was that intersection of radio that had me go to San Francisco at that time, and that was where everything else took off for me. Because
you started though in LA, when like your intro was to the rave scene in LA. Mm-hmm. Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah,
I got you. Grew up in the East Coast, but then you ended up, because of your father's career, ended up in LA at some.
Yeah, so that was where I was in high school, and so high school age was going to underage clubs and eventually raves and kind of stumbling upon greatness, because I stumbled upon Wicked and
Jesus.
Like Doc Martin and Moon Tribes. And I mean, come on. And then I was like, I went back to the East Coast for a hot second, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, I love the West Coast. There's something special happening there, and something really called me to San Francisco. And I'm so glad I went there at that time, because that's where the jungle scene all got started, and really where, in terms of like the timing, that I graduated college in 98. So, like the first .com boom was starting to happen. So all of that, media interest and like media production all kind of came together for me then.
Yeah, there was really a convergence, both I think of just, I don't want to know if it was respect for creative endeavors, but also this convergence of like new ways of looking at doing business and money and
well, as a globe, all of a sudden, like, self-expression and community was becoming this global thing, like for real. Because I was listening to pirate radio stations out of London over the internet in the computer lab at University of San Francisco, and I was got my first job working for like a multimedia startup, and they had a fax machine, which is how people communicated back then. So I was like faxing labels, telling them about my radio show and asking for promos, and kind of doing, like you were talking about, being in the sales and just kind of going for it and just like asking, like reaching out to people and trying to make connections. And that was like so much more possible then.
It was. Tony H said, closed mouths don't get fed.
Absolutely. Right? Like ask.
Yep.
Ask.
It's funny, that same time I was actually working construction. I took a last quarter off of college in Hawaii, and there was a local college radio station, I guess, and I don't know which one it was, but I would make sure I was on the beach every Saturday listening to Horizontal Lounge, and like Mark Farina was on, and John Howard, and like they were playing a bunch of West Coast, West Coast heads back then, and it was just like such a good, and it was, I'm in this crazy, on this crazy beach in Hawaii, listening to house music, and and that all grew into groove tech as a whole topic. But like we were doing things then, like what Twitch is now. Like we were doing that then when people were still on dial-up. Like we were just like ahead of the wave, right? I'm not surprised by that. I'm always like, all right, I want to catch that next wave. I want to catch that next wave where like basically human consciousness and technology is like all right at that same level. But I think that we're there. Like there's something happening now with AI and all of that, which I'm super interested in. We could probably do a whole show about as well. But, totally.
But yeah, like it's cool to see, and this is the beauty of having the like 30 years in this now, is like you can zoom out and go, oh look, there's the waves, there's like the peaks and the valleys and the changes, and you can start to see how like, okay, when human consciousness and technology line up, like some really, really magical things can happen.
So fair to say, when other kids were playing house and Cowboys and Indians, you're playing radio show host.
I was playing radio show host, or like making routines to like, Janet Jackson videos kind of thing,
And then you ended up in San Francisco, specifically running a radio station, or running a radio show at their station. And how did you do that? Were you pulled into that, or did you? I
was pursuing radio for sure, because I knew like that's what I loved. It's what that's what I understood really DJing to be early on. And then of course that intersected with going out and going to raves. So I started booking DJs on the radio, and then there was an Irish guy that was in charge of an Irish bar who heard me booking drum and bass DJs on the radio. And he called me and said, look, if you're booking the DJs on the radio, come like start a night. And that's when, and I had never thrown a club night before. So I got a couple of my close girlfriends and we started Eclectic, which started in 1997, really became like the epicenter for drum and bass on the West Coast, and has its own storied history of like how influential it was in terms of bringing talent to the West Coast, all the like bunch of collaborations that came out of that, and artists that it launched. Like Eclectic became a part of a lot of people's history.
I love that. Yeah. And it was, I mean, wasn't that a pretty male heavy drum and bass, especially West Coast, right?
Yeah. But San Francisco had a really interesting thing happen at that time. And I actually see this now happening in Seattle, but women here are like very supportive of each other.
Yep.
And at that time in San Francisco is also like that. If you looked around, like women were running the radio shows, the record labels, the magazines, the club nights. Like there was like enough of like women in positions of power where it just kind of like there was a flywheel of support where it just then of course then encouraged more women to get involved. And that's the thing, like girls and women need to see another woman do something first before they kind of clicks in their mind that they can do it too. And I feel like that's very much like what called me back to music in 2015, 2016, and creating GriffinGrrl was very much like, wow, like I had put DJing aside for a while and didn't really think that it was going to be something that I did again. But I think that's part of the calling was like being vocal and being visible actually has such a ripple effect into the community, and a lot kind of like in its own way gives other people permission to do it too. So
yeah, I've noticed a theme even with, and we were talking about this off camera, but having some of the other femme guests, artists, DJs, producers that we've had through, there is definitely a level of support that's admirable. And it's very cool to see.
Well, women, usually it goes one way or the other really quickly. It goes into like competition and scarcity or abundance and sisterhood. And we're definitely, if I have anything to do with it, it's going to go that, the way of support and creating a safe place to ask questions, and then like creating the allies, having there be enough strength to be like, yeah, we have each other's backs, and we have this like great group of allies around us that are also helping lift us up, Do
you feel like in Seattle specifically, it's pretty fair representation now between, male artists and femme artists, as far as like, well, I would ask both in production, but also in performance?
I think there's definitely like a whole new group of women that came out of lockdown as DJs, which is really cool to see.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of people got that memo, or like, oh, they're not going out anymore. They took they took that time to learn. And I think that's awesome. I love seeing more women behind the decks. I definitely, there's like a point where it stops though. And that's where I'm working on educating our brothers and our allies and folks in the industry to see that it does stop at a certain point when you look at promoters, club owners, that kind of like that. There's a certain level of like an economic ceiling that I think like when you look at where the money's flowing, women are usually left out of that. So sure, women are getting booked. People want to see women on lineups, so that's like there's a demand there, and there's there's good support on the crews to be bringing exposure to like fresh talent, but you don't see a ton of women promoters, and you definitely don't see, like, even if you just look at Monkey Loft and the layer of like who's running those nights, like there's a lot of like women on support, but there's not really like women at the table in terms of like the core crews that are like running those nights in that business. So I just think it's interesting to look at. And
what do you think that is though? I mean, you're paying attention.
I think that, I think it all comes down to money in a lot of ways and economics. And I don't think a lot of women are in a position to take a loss on a night and take that risk. And I think that you have to have that appetite to get to that point.
Okay.
And yeah, it's just, I don't have the answers there, but I just think it's interesting to look at and just see like, okay, you see a lot of women on bills. Awesome. and then look a little bit deeper and see like the business side of it,
right,
and go, okay.
But it sounds to me you're talking a little bit about like that 4 Minute Mile situation, right? It's just going to take one to crack it, and then it, and
it's growing. I mean, I think about things like Bass Coast, right?
Yep.
Like Bass Coast is mostly women run.
I did not know that.
I hear amazing things about it in terms of like attention to detail, design, right? Like, so it's not there. And, we do have, I believe Kremwork is owned by a woman. I think my memory is not going to serve me right now. So I'm not saying it's not there 100%, but I'm like, just look. It's like, if you're going to look and be like, great, yeah, equality, great, there's lots of women on bills. I'm like, great, awesome. And that's just the beginning.
Right.
It's just the beginning, because hopefully these young women that are getting into it as DJs, hopefully they are producing, and hopefully they are looking at becoming promoters, because it feels so good to give other people opportunities. Like Mindy was talking about that on your show. Like, it feels good to have a night to be able to give opportunities to other people. Totally. And that's part of like the maturity that I think that comes as an artist, when it's like not all about you anymore. Yeah. And you've got enough of like a voice, you've got enough financial backing or enough of like influence to be able to start to lift other people up too.
It's a super interesting perspective, and that's why I was asking, and I wasn't trying to push on it. I've been paying attention in whatever capacity since the mid 90s, right? Mm-hmm. And we were talking about this too, like we see these waves, and we've seen multiple waves, whether it's in the work world or in the music business or whatever. And it's just, I have a feeling that we're like you said, we're on the front of something right now.
Yeah, because it's the same if I look at any kind of tech company. Yep. Like there'll be a lot of women involved, but if you actually look there, it gets pretty thin at the top
as you go up.
And that's just like important to look at. And this is it's a fun, creative community, beautiful, and it's also a business. Yeah. So you got to look at the money.
Yeah. Well, talk to me a little bit about that. So you are one of those folks, like I'm starting to segment people into, without oversimplifying, but like the folks that I talk to, there's the creatives that purely make their money from doing music, right?
Respect.
Oh my God, it's a hustle, right? And then there's the creatives that aren't really even worried about the money from the music because they have a career or whatever. And then there's every once in a while, we're talking about Kid Hops or you even, where you've kind of figured out this way to converge your experience and passion and industry knowledge between tech and music into this thing that you're kind of creating now, which I would love to hear a little bit more about.
Yeah.
That's, for me, I think that's the dream. I just never cracked the code on it.
Yeah, I get it. Well, early on in my career, when I was just getting started, I didn't like the feeling of having like a total double life. Like I didn't like that it was like that basically who I was, and who I was at my most fully self-expressed and most free was like relegated to like the moonlighting section. So I wanted to find a way to really integrate, and it sounded like crazy coming out of my mouth. Like It sounded ludicrous saying that like I'm going to love what I do for a living and I'm going to like be me wherever I'm going to be paid to be me. Like that sounds crazy. Right. But over the years, like, and I'd say like I definitely focused on jobs in the music industry at first. I was working at a magazine and working at the internet radio station and ultimately started my own business doing music consulting for film and television. Like music was my business for a while. And then coming up to Seattle and Kid Hops giving me the opportunity to do, music at Microsoft was really my bridge into tech. And that's really where it put it to test. Got it. Because there is and I got to do, music and cool music stuff at Microsoft at that time. I was curating playlists and doing label relations, and that was really fun. And then I got to a point where I was like, need more separation, it just got to, like, I kind of like felt like some of the authenticity was lost for me. So I wanted to separate it. And really that was at a time where I needed to explore some new things anyways. Like I wanted to do more embodiment and yoga stuff, and I wanted to have a kid and like just try some new things in my life. Like I had been doing music and DJing at that point for enough time where I was burnt out.
Yeah.
And burnout is like something that we all need to pay attention to as humans on planet Earth in general. But that's really where I would say, you know, now standing where I am now as someone that I could say I'm a professional culture designer. I'm a chief of staff for a design team at Microsoft, and I'm approaching it all as an employee experience and a culture designer. I got all of those skills from dance music, and I started to do more when I was starting to shift my career into culture design, I started talking about dance music and what I've learned from dance music, and how, you know, these concepts that they talk about in corporate world, like diversity and inclusion, is just how we live in dance music, and how we kind of look at what we're doing. You know, we measure success, right? Is like, we're thriving. We've got like the best dance floor is got a lot of different flavors on that dance floor, right? And the most strong crews and the most strong projects, I think, are really strongly inclusive. So talking about inclusion and improvisation and like all of that is what culture is. And so being able to transfer that into like a corporate environment and be able to say like, you could design culture for a workplace or a community it's what like kind of fuels my curiosity. You know, I can't say like I've cracked the nut and I have like the silver bullet for like how to make great cultures, but like it's dance music and the essence of dance music, which is, you know, which honors its roots, right? It honors its roots in Black and queer culture, and it's like, and it's includes many people in that story now, and like that's it all comes back to like where I think it's naturally emerging, and that's beyond like the hot genres and the hot DJs of the moment. Like at this stage with this perspective of, you know, 25, 30 years, like you can start to see the essence of something and what makes it just good, and why we keep coming back to it, and why even if it's like separate from our day job, it's something so precious to us that we'll always put energy into and hopefully get energy back from. And anyhow, I'm kind of going off.
Well, no, I love it. And I'm going to have you get a little more specific if you would. So I'm working at Microsoft. I have X problems. Somebody says, oh, you need to reach out to Emily Griffin. Like, what is that problem that you're solving when you're, you know?
Yeah, I'm looking at the employee experience and the employee journey. So I'm looking at like when you come into a company, or when you even think about a company like a tech, we'll use Microsoft as an example. There's like an attraction there, then there's recruiting, and then there's welcoming you, and then there's when you're there, you want to belong and you want to grow there, right? This is all part of the employee journey. So I look at the employee journey, and then I also look at this. I use a model for culture design that was developed by my friend Josh, and his book Great Mondays, which is awesome and highly recommend it. He also has a podcast, and the model basically is I love it because it looks at culture almost like through a lens of like a product maker. So you look at kind of like the main themes or epics of a culture. So you've got a purpose, like your North Star, you have your values, you have your behaviors, you have your recognition, like how you're recognizing those values aligned behaviors. You have your rituals, like your rituals for connection and just being human together. And then you have your cues or communication. So that's how I look at the employee journey, and I look at that model of culture, and then I start to see, just like I would look at an app or a business, and you look at what's strong, what's weak. You know, where is there like low effort going on with low business value, and like where can you invest to like boost the whole thing. And so I'm really passionate about the welcome, belong, and grow part of the journey. Yeah. Because I believe in great onboarding. I believe in human connection on teams and like building that into how we work. And I believe all of that ultimately can lead to more innovation. And, you know, so many teams in tech are working on like the future, and they want to touch every person on the planet. And AI is like changing everything for everyone. And I believe that we can't make products and services for humans unless we actually have a human experience at work. And, you know, work has become so transactional, and I just want to get what, your company just wants to get what it gets out of you, and like just burn you out. And I think that's an old model that is dying, and especially young people, they don't want that anymore. They see through that. They know that it's unhealthy. And that's why I look to dance music. And when I'm up there performing and DJing, I know that my whole job is to light people up and inspire them to be alive in the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And to bring that into how they interact with their beloveds and their kids and their coworkers. And that's my prayer every time that I DJ, is like, I just want people to feel that spark of aliveness and freedom and bring that into the rest of their lives.
I love the parallels, and I'm grasping it now because I've worked in the corporate world for a long time, and so much of that culture was about retention. Retention was where it sort of ended. That was like the holy grail. Like, what does our retention data look like, right? Then you slipped into some satisfaction, but never. I haven't heard it illustrated that way, where you're actually taking it to innovation, which and then it becomes this flywheel, I would imagine.
Well, when you have like human connection and people feel connected to their own heart and their own purpose, and then that actually is connected to what the company's about, like there's new things I think possible when everyone's like, and we experience that in dance music. Like, you go to a night kind of on your own mission, you have your own story, your own purpose, but then there's something that happens on a dance floor when everything gels.
Oh yeah.
You know that feeling?
I do.
There's nothing like that feeling. Know. Like, if we could bottle that feeling and like give people a taste out there, that's the thing. Like, that's why I love free parties and like parties out in the daytime, out in the park, and things like that, because there's like this thing, like this shouldn't be relegated to these environments that are like hidden and in the dark and on the side. Like, it should be accessible. Right. It should be available to multi-generations. And like, this is why, because there is that magic that happens when you're all doing you're doing your own thing, but you're doing it together. Yeah. Like, something else happens. And that's what that's what keeps me in it. And that's what keeps me staying, like prioritizing staying healthy with it, so I can be a part of it and not burn out again, because that's what happens. And we actually lose some great people in the community because they can't, like, the level of being able to stay healthy and in it tanks. Right. And that's what I feel like, especially like us older cats, can help model, is like healthy behavior, so that we can sustain. Because I see all this fresh talent coming in. I'm just like, stay healthy, stay with it. Like, we need you,
Yeah, and there's the politics and cattiness and clicky
and addiction. And I mean, there's a lot of shadow side to it. But that's why, like, we have to stay healthy so we can stay in it and keep bringing the magic. Yeah.
For sure. No, and that's I get it now. Like, it took me. I read a little bit about your background and just got sort of an idea what you're doing, but I didn't really understand. And I think for a lot of people that aren't in tech, when people hear tech, like tech gets a pretty bad rap in general for the outsiders, and for some insiders too. Just they're paid too much. They're not doing anything that's life changing. What they're selling non-tangibles most of the time. There's a lot of sort of I think immature views about what tech is, and you're a good example of the thoughtfulness and the intention behind the right organizations and what you guys are trying to do, what your mission is. It's really cool to hear.
Well, there's tech isn't going away.
No.
And it is a huge opportunity to make an impact, because when we work on products, it does reach billions of people. Yep. And when those experiences are more accessible, when it's taking into account people that have different abilities, that are multi-generation, and also when we think about the impact on the planet and like the potential for creating more sustainable and regenerative experience, like all of that. I'm not going to get too abstract with it, but I see a lot of potential, and the potential is about impact, and it's about making it more human, right? Like,
Yeah.
like we are straddling kind of like an old world of like kind of like late stage capitalism, very extractive and damaging way of being. And there is something new. And I feel like dance music culture has always been looked to for innovation. It's always kind of been seen as like youth culture, really,
Right.
and like the future. And so how do we infuse that into kind of this system that is, it's changing, and it has to change.
Yeah.
Like there is like an urgency there. And so like what we have, I think the only thing that really makes sense to me anymore is art and music and bringing that kind of like artist mentality into these spaces, you know, because we know people in the scene that they work in, they're social workers and they work in the government, and like they, we all spread out during the week and go and like work on our little pockets of like where we've chosen to do, make our living. And I want the experience we have when we come together in community and storytell and be together and the gathering and the sharing. Like I want that to be infused in everything else we do, because then we can change the world.
I love it. So let me flip this on you. From what you've been doing in tech, has that changed your approach back into dance music and sort of dance music culture? And has it just changed how you interact?
Well, it's definitely, especially now with AI and seeing how AI and just using our natural language is changing like what's possible in terms of like productivity. I'm definitely like looking at music technology in new ways, like even just in the last 6 months. And I'm looking at ways that even preparing for gigs and just all the like fiddly stuff we have to do to kind of like manage our files and move things around. And I'm like, where could this be more natural and intuitive?
Yeah.
Like if like I'm looking at if there's any AI company, any music tech companies out there that want to jam on this. Like I really feel like there's something that is possible around just making it all even more natural and intuitive and accessible for people. I mean, as someone that, there was a point in my life where I let go of all of my gear. I had a lot of gear. I had a lot of records. I really let most of it go. I brought my record collection down from like 36 crates to 6 crates.
Wow.
And I let go of all my hardware and I let it all go. And then then music of course was like, get the fuck back here. And so I was like, okay, I called Kyle Kid Hops. I called Gene Lee, and I was like, okay, what do I do? And they're like, look, Emily, you have a laptop, you can do it. And like the bar of entry for me to re-enter and create GriffinGrrl was so low because I spent $150 on Tractor Pro. Wow. And got a controller and was, a single mom at the time, home with my kids sleeping, and I was able to start mixing again. Like the bar of entry, like the accessibility for me to be able to come back and without having to spend $6,000 on like a new studio. That's the kind of like, that's what I mean by accessibility.
Right.
Like make it more accessible.
Do you feel like I've heard sort of two stances on accessibility. The other thing is that lower bar of accessibility does create a lot of noise in the business, right? And
Yeah, I get it. I get it. But then then you get the signal that comes out. Like, you hear about stories about, people playing with Fruit Loops, in their bedroom. And then, I mean, even I think of like Disclosure, like those were like two brothers hanging out in their bedroom. And then they like kind of like revived house music. And like, I mean, come on, like who doesn't love Disclosure, right? Yeah. Like those guys just like started in their bedroom with like some gear. Like I think there's the stars will always kind of like emerge from it. And yeah, like I go shopping on Beatport. Like there's a lot of garbage out there. I'm sorry. Like, but you know what? But like at the point, but then, I spend 2 seconds and then I move on, it's like, you got it. That's why us as curators and DJs, like that's part of our job is to like sift through the noise and like know how to, find the signal and amplify the goods. Yeah.
And I mean, me personally, like there's a bit of a biased question, but I always feel like the accessibility argument has never like held much water anyway. I'm like, you're gonna do it if you want to do it, and if you go after it. And
I mean, I work with an amazing team at work that they run the Inclusive Tech Lab, and they're making adaptive controllers for games, and and they're working with people with like with disabilities that don't that can't use their hands and their bodies in the same way we can, and like why do they have to be left out?
Yeah. And then we go back to I think the other thing is this feast and famine mentality. Well, everybody can spend $150, a single mom all of a sudden becomes a DJ. Like, is that fair? That's yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Yes. I think it's amazing.
Yes. And then that person having a community to connect into, to ask questions and celebrate their wins, and like that's a piece of it that's important too, is like not be feeling alone in that. And that's what dance music and our community in Seattle, like I'm so proud of our community, because I do feel like we have a really collaborative and supportive community. Like I'm sure there's some naysayers and there's some moments, and we're humans, so it's relationships, things are complicated sometimes. Definitely. But overall, like people visit here and they just go, "Whoa, something's different here." I'm like, yeah, like we're collaborating. Like we don't have like feuding crews and all that stuff. Like you see a lot of that cross-pollination, and I mean, even a project like this, it's like it all like it lifts everybody up.
It does. I mean, and that was the whole goal, and probably much like what you're doing. We don't necessarily want to be beholden to any one crew or one night or whatever. Like there's so much juice right now going on, and we wanted to get in on it, and we also wanted to bolster it. So
and Seattle, like more people need to know about Seattle and the amazing talent here. So I love your mix of talking to the veterans and talking to the new school, and it's a good mix. Yeah.
And there's so many more to talk to. Like I have this crazy list.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do.
And I think what I've really enjoyed that's been fun has been just the responsiveness, and like I don't know you're coming into my studio, which isn't my house, right? But the openness to come in and to do this, and you don't know what I'm going to ask you necessarily, and I don't know what I'm going to ask you necessarily. That's how this stuff flows. So.
Well, I have to thank Amy Snapdragon for leading like when I saw Amy do it, I was like, all right, it's a good spot. It's a good spot. No, it's good. It's good. And I had fun binge watching all of your episodes. So
love it.
Yes.
I love it. So for you, I mean, I think I have a pretty good feel where this all kind of started, where you were, where are you going though? Like, where's this all? What's the roadmap look like for you?
I do not have a roadmap for music, and that's by design. Yeah. Because I feel like the best moments for me have always, like they've emerged, and it's been there for me to say yes to, and I know when it's a yes because I feel that energy in my body, and so I'm still gigging. I'm selective with my gigs. I can't play every weekend. There's just I can't do it anymore. It's okay. So my performances feel special. I put many hours of prep into my performances because I love the selection and the curation of the songs and the building of the story, and I can do that. Like that's rejuvenative to me. I can be in bed on with my tractor on my laptop and have fun with that, and then like really bring the show when I perform, and I love that. I love that part of it, and I have some mixes. And I have like a backlog of DJ mixes that like I haven't put out a mix in a little while, so it's time. I'm sending one to mastering today, and like I love that because then my mixes are really fun because I can reach my friends outside of Seattle, and I can reach my friends that don't go clubbing anymore, and it's like a moment in time, and it's a story that I've curated over many performances. Like by the time I end up at a mix, it's because I've really like hung with those tracks and I love them, and they don't annoy me anymore. They don't annoy me. So I can like, I get sick of music really quickly. That's what makes me a great DJ. It's part of why I couldn't imagine like hanging out with like one drum beat or one bass line and making music for too long. Like it sounds like torture to me. So I'm a great DJ, and would rather have songs that like really make beautiful love together. Like I love that combination of songs. And so I'll put out some mixes. I love collaborating with visual artists. So I've got a fun collaboration that I've done with Brandon De Palma, 8 Day Create. And he's worked on some new branding for me and put some really beautiful art together for one of the mixes that's coming out. So I also really love curating stages and like having a chance to create an experience and a platform to include other artists. And that's kind of like what's calling me. Like I want to do some things that are a little different, a little more involved, and like create a whole vibe and an experience. And visual art's really interesting to me. So, I mean, I'm really going with the flow here. I'm going where the energy takes me, and it's never led me wrong in the past. So.
Well, and one thing that's unique about you is you don't necessarily produce, right?
Yeah.
And was that a conscious choice, or?
I've played with producing. I would say I love, when I have hung out in the studio in the past, like I'm good at helping producers maybe that aren't DJs. I'm helping them arrange songs to be better DJ.
That makes sense.
Be better DJ tools, basically. But I get sick of sounds so easily that I can't hang out with one sound for too long. Like it kind of drives me nuts. And I also don't like a lot of the fiddly computer work. So like for me, I'm on computers I'm on camera and on a machine all day. And I don't necessarily, it's part of like what even just being on tractor for hours at night after work is like already enough for me. So, and I want that to be, and that's what I'm saying, like being able to talk to my computer and tell it to do stuff versus even doing this would be awesome for me, because that would make it less taxing basically on my body.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm keeping it light, keeping going with the flow, feeling where the fuck yes is, and that's what my roadmap looks like.
No, it's
kind of like
cool.
putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, I had a similar discussion with Terry Jacinto about production, you know, because that's always sort of been my thing too, like more computer time.
Yeah.
I'm like the least technical sales guy you'll probably ever meet, which is, you know, good and bad, right?
But God, like, I'm so grateful for the people that make the music.
I know.
Like, thank you for the people that do hang out and like make that drum loop just the way it is, because I get to take the best of that work. Like, totally. I feel sometimes I think about how when I'm auditioning songs and selecting songs, and I'm like, God, I really didn't give that song much of a chance, but I know it's not for me. And I'm thinking of the hours that someone put into that song. Yeah. And I'm just like, 1, 2, 3, yep, nope, you know, and I'm like, wow, someone probably spent many hours on that, and good luck to you. It's not for me, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I have huge admiration for the folks that are producers and the prolific producers that just keep turning out, and the consistent, you know, it's so amazing. Like that to me is more unreachable than anything. Is just, I like you, I think sitting in the studio and giving some ideas and you know, maybe help structure. I could see myself doing that, but
yeah, the collaboration, it sounds
that's
fun.
Super fun.
Like hanging out with homies and collaborating sounds fun if someone was actually doing the engineering work.
Yeah.
And yeah, for me, it's like, you know, I've got a almost 6th grader at home. I'm, you know, raising my daughter, and I'm really going forward at work. Like I really do want to make an impact as a leader in tech and make a difference there. So you know, we only have so many hours in the day. And I will say the one thing I'm not sacrificing is sleep. Like I get 8 to 9 hours of sleep every night. You. I am determined to hold that boundary, and not even a well-paying job is gonna eat into that. So
I've settled into that same pattern. Like I used to, I mean, I'm an infamous procrastinator, but I used to put things off and then do like an all-nighter, and I won't do that anymore. Like I can't hang. It wrecks me for 2 days.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's the same when it comes to going out too. Like I have to be pretty intentional about
very intentional.
Those late hours. So besides music, you know, I know you mentioned yoga. Are there any other hobbies? I mean, you sound like you're pretty busy anyway, right? With work, between work and your creative endeavors.
I mean,
your mom.
Not swimming. I wasn't going to say swimming. Maybe I need to get into swimming. Gardening. I'm like, okay. I wish I had more time for gardening, because gardening is like meditative for me.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know if I really have hobbies. I mean, my husband is like a pickleball nut, so I'm playing pickleball once in a while.
It's like a hot thing now, right? Pickleball?
It's a thing. Like, my husband's going to nationals. Like, he became a pickleball that, like, very
I'm not
quickly.
laughing at your husband. I just
No,
think that's
it's the
amazing.
laughter of, like, kind of like surprise and delight in a
Thank
way.
you.
Like,
Yes.
like, yeah, like all of a sudden my husband's going to national competition for pickleball. So I'm supportive of, one of my hobbies is being supportive of my husband and his pickleball thing. And I go play once in a while, and it's good. It's good to suck at new things. I'm just saying, growth mindset.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I suck at cooking. I probably could get better at that. I don't really have hobbies. Like, music is my life, but it is definitely like the thing that I get to do to like put energy into it. I feel creatively fulfilled.
For sure.
That's why I love collaborating with visual artists. Like, I think there's so much possibility and fun things to do there, and
especially bringing tech into that. And
like there's so much around just like art and community building. Like, I really see like the mentoring that I do and the support, the kind of the emotional support behind the scenes of people. Like, I guess you can't really call that a hobby, but it takes time, and I'm committed to being there for people, even if I'm not like out and in the mix all the time.
Right.
Like, I'm still there behind the scenes. People need to know that. Like, I'm paying attention and supporting people behind the scenes.
And the hobby thing is a bit of a loaded question sometimes, because I think for people like you and your unique case where you've sort of designed your life where it has this, there's not these dividers necessarily. And a lot of people, myself included, there's a lot of times there's dividers. I do this and I do this.
Yeah.
And you walked in, you saw a motorcycle, and I ride a motorcycle, and that's one of the hobbies. When it's just, that's how it is, right?
Yeah.
So I think I'm learning a lot about you, and just in general, like making me now reflect on a bunch of things. Which really, this is like, for me, this is like a therapy session most of the time.
When I came, I was like, I feel like I'm going to therapy, like music community therapy. It's good
though. No, and I always, I always think it's super interesting to hear. Like I said, I've seen you DJ. I don't know how many times I've seen you DJ, but never talked to you. And my experience is the majority of what people experience out there, besides the people that you're supporting currently. Like, a lot of people don't know anything about you.
Yeah, DJs don't talk.
No,
like, DJs. It's good to get us on the mic sometimes. There's a whole thing going on in the background,
and people's backgrounds and their histories and their origin stories are really fascinating. I've watched the lights click on even when I've been talking to somebody and they've been telling their story and they're like, oh yeah. So that's pretty.
That's
fun
good.
For me.
That's good. You got to get DJs to talk sometimes,
I
and then you
agree.
get us to like not talk and just play the music. Let the music do the talking.
Well, speaking of playing the music, before we get to that, anything else, this is always, if there's any shout outs, any upcoming gigs, any upcoming projects that you have on the burner.
I will say I have a really fun gig coming up Labor Day weekend. I've helped influence a UK garage showcase at Monkey with Soft Option and Grrl. So Mindy's on the lineup. Gabe, No Fucks Gibbons, best DJ name, is on the bill, and Avignon, Michael Robertson is on it. So we're gonna do like a UKG showcase. Like, I've been like sliding it into my house sets.
I love it.
In a slow time, like, obviously more like a slower tempo, just to kind of see how Seattle responds to it. And I'm interested to see how like a full UKG night at Monkey on a Saturday is going to go.
I think Paul would probably be into that too. We're going to have to go. In fact, I have one of his crates that's got some like vintage proper UK garage.
Yeah, because there's some like some new stuff coming out that is like, the kids of the people that were doing UKG are now making there's some cool new producers out there and doing some cool stuff. So I'm excited about that. And then, check out my SoundCloud, because I'll be releasing some new mixes, and who knows what's next.
I love it. And anything you want to say before I cut you loose on the decks to do your thing?
Just...
Oh, you got a plan?
To all the art, I just want to, to all the artists out there, just keep doing it. The world needs you. And thanks so much for having me, Phil, and the Seattle House Mafia crew. Thanks for this project, and keep going.
Thank you. We appreciate it. And it wouldn't be a project without people like you being open enough to come talk to a weird bald guy in his house of
A
our music.
barefoot bald guy too.
Barefoot bald guy in overall. What is wrong with
But
that
he
man,
has
baby?
great kombucha
There you go,
choices.
see.
So
I do provide a drink rider, don't I?
yes, we do.
It's one perk. Yeah.
Tequila for Tony, kombucha for me.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. That's right. No, I think actually you're not the only one that's requested kombucha either, which is pretty interesting. I think
Good.
it's the drink, and I always have some, so it's good.
Great. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming in. I don't know. I think we end on that note. I think
Yeah,
we
that's
wrapped it
great.
up nicely.
Yeah, thank you
There's
so
so much
much.
more to talk about. Love to have you through again, but for now, let's get you in the mix a little bit.
Great. Sounds good.
All right.